Welcome to the Dirty Penguin Presents Movies! Welcome to the Dirty Penguin Presents Season 2, Episode 6. The Dirty Penguin Presents Movies, The Last American Virgin. That's what we're squawking about today.
So let's jump in here. Doug, give us some of those fresh movie facts.
Hit the theme. Fresh facts, buddy.
Give it to us straight, Doug.
Play the facts.
Give it to us straight, Doug.
All right. The Last American Virgin, made in 1982. What is the fresh rating on this?
I have it.
I don't remember. 47.
32.
I'll say 62% fresh.
Kevin?
75%.
Oh, it's the nostalgia factor.
So, like, I wrote down I have a lot of notes on this movie because I'd never seen this movie.
Neither had I.
So
You're welcome.
I wrote down all three. I wrote down the IMDb, Metacritic, and Rotten. So 75% for Rotten Tomatoes, and that was the critic score. I think was that the critic score? Critic score. But like Metacritic, if you go to Metacritic, I think Metacritic has a better rating scale. That's a 43% because that is more of a critics and audience. That kind of like averages the two.
They have a better metric.
Yeah, and then IMDb is a 6.3 out of 10. So I mean, it's kind of like anywhere from a 4 on in the Rotten Tomato, whatever, a 4 in the IMDb scale to a 10 or to a 7. So, but 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. Long story short, too late. 75%
Right.
Rotten Tomatoes.
We'll just do this real quick. Gross for the U.S. It's 1982, so it's very low.
I don't think
10
I wrote
million.
that down.
I don't think you
10?
not
I don't
even.
think it broke a million.
Oh,
I'd say 800,000.
5.8.
5.8
million?
million.
Oh, wow.
Which I think if you do in today's money, it's $15 million.
Right.
in today's money, it's $1 billion.
$1 billion.
So this starred Lawrence. Like, really? It doesn't really matter.
Exactly. It stars people who
Never did anything
know of and
else.
have never done anything else. If you go to their IMDb page, it is not very full.
So this movie was made. This movie was made by Canon Films, and if you've never seen the documentary on Canon Films, it's
beautiful.
a spectacular.
It is beautiful.
What is it?
So Canon Films, they were a production company, right? And I've only seen this was on.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
And they did like He-Man, right? They did like Master of the Universe, and they did all of these really shitty.
They did Master of the Universe. They did the Missing in Action.
Yes, which was good. Missing in Action was fucking good.
Breaking 2, The Electric Boogaloo.
Yep.
Wow.
Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh,
Oh,
Quest for
yeah.
Peace.
Let's get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
A bunch
A string
those
of
type
bad movies.
Production company.
Right,
Yeah.
but they were known. I mean, that like this documentary goes into this whole like
It's called-
backstory.
It's
of
called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of
Canon Films. Yeah, it's great.
Check
Highly
it out.
recommend it.
It's a really
I
good.
will.
It's a really good one.
And this is one of their films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the director was Bose Davidson, and Bose Davidson, he's really known as a producer.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
88 Minutes, Wicker Man, The New Rambo, Bad Lieutenant 2, London Has Fallen, Hitman's Bodyguard.
Mhm.
So
Which Wicker Man?
the Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah.
The only one that matters.
That is not the first one.
Yeah.
That is the second Wicker Man.
So this is the original film. This is a remake, I guess.
So
Yes, I wrote. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Wait.
remember this. This is
It's
an
an-
original film.
He did an American version
yes,
of a
Lemon Popsicle.
Lemon
Right.
Popsicle.
Oh,
Same
okay.
director, same writer. This is just a
That one took
Yes.
place in the 50s, and so this was made in the 80s. Obviously,
yes. This was a
Okay.
adaptation for America, but that was an Iranian, right? It was
Israeli. I think.
Israeli.
Nancy Brock, who played the call girl, was propositioned during the shoot on Hollywood Boulevard.
I remember reading that.
I don't have much. So, and the other one is
Wait, was she Ruby?
yes, the
She was-
Lady of the Night.
She was
I have
just a
something to
prostitute.
say about
she
Oh,
wasn't.
well,
We'll get
We're
there.
going to get to Ruby, I hope.
The film has 3 taglines. A very funny movie about the first time. the comedy that puts zip into being a teen.
No.
See it or be it.
Yeah.
That one doesn't make sense to me.
That's a line in the movie though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Right when they get into who has the largest penis.
Oh, okay. First, okay. Before we really get into this movie, I want to tell everybody out there, watch this movie before you listen to this podcast because
if you haven't watched this movie, stop this podcast, go watch this, spend the 90 minutes and go watch this.
Give your
no one
You
will
might have
care.
to do a little
if you
digging
watch
to
this.
get to
Give your
it.
computer aids. It will happen because it's the most sketchy websites to find this movie. Go watch this movie.
I found it on Comcast. You had to pay $3.99 for it.
I had to kill about 15 pop-up windows to watch this movie.
That's what I did.
All right, so Andy, this one was your movie, your baby.
Mm-hmm.
You hated this movie. This was the one that when we came up with the topic, it was the first thing that popped in your head, and
That's
you went
correct.
with it.
That's what I said.
So Andy, give us the rundown on your reasoning for hating this movie.
The movie came out in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it a little in perspective. It was
Summer of 1982.
Summer of 1982.
This was a summer blockbuster.
It is a typical, I would guess, say, sex farce. And those have been in a tradition in the theater for a long time. They got in the 80s. They kind of got readapted into these high school hijinks, crazy hijinks films. In 1981, Porky's.
And so that's exactly what I thought. Porky's 2.
1981, Porky's debuted. This movie, Last American Virgin, opened up against that same summer, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 1982.
See, that's what I was reminded of.
Now, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is, I like that movie. I enjoy that. It's a really good film. This movie is no Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Now, in 1982, when I saw it, I don't know if I didn't actually go to the theater to see it. Probably wasn't even old enough to go to the theater, and not something my parents would probably take me to. But when I did finally see it, I think what made me hate it the most the first time I saw it is the end. Okay?
And here we go.
And away
Here we go. That third act kind of really pulls you out of the fun hijinks film that I'm not quite sure they ever really
I
established.
know it becomes an after-school special.
and you get to that third act, and it gets rough, it gets heavy.
Mm-hmm.
They had an opportunity to end it light. The director decided at the last minute, if you've researched it or know anything about it,
I don't know.
he decided at the last end to change the ending to make it more autobiographical. I guess this is what happened to him. And I guess as a young kid, I saw the movie and I just hated that ending. Okay, that ending.
I can see that.
That ending made no sense to me as a kid, and the movie stuck with me. Now, when I watched it again for this podcast,
So wait, you had not seen it since
1983.
Okay.
I've just hated it all that time.
Wow.
It
That's a
has
long
festered
hate.
in your memory since 1980. How many years is that? How many?
You gotta
anybody?
understand, in
Quick
1983,
math?
1984, when that movie, when it and like HBO hit, and you could just
Yeah.
watch movies, and
Oh, I remember.
and you could watch
Yeah.
that one, and you Fast Times. I probably watched it about 10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
When it
Because it was on.
it was one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was-
the way you watch movies back then, it was one of the few things. And I had lots of friends who liked this movie back then in 1982, mainly because you get to see some titties,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very exciting for us at the age of 13 and 14 to
Very
see some.
Porky's, very Hamburger,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
those types of movies.
Very ubiquitously 80s.
Yeah, so a lot of friends.
Meatballs.
So
Meatballs
we
is
watched it
another
like
one.
several times, but I always hated the ending. Now, having seen it again as for the podcast, I noticed a lot more problems with the film,
Mhm.
to say the least. There's a lot of problems with the setup to even get to the end, and even like when I first saw it in 1982, the relationship between him and her, I understood more when I was 13 and 14. When I watch it today, it's like, dude, you just have a crush. Like she
Yeah.
gave you no reason to even like her that. But like you haven't even had more than like a 2-minute conversation with
This
her.
movie
ever.
has so many problems, and like it is. I was shocked. I tell you.
Okay.
And
By
you
some of the
all-
things that happened in this
Shocked
movie.
Before you watch the film, did you watch the trailer?
I
The
want
trailer
to say
was
yes.
nothing but music.
If you watch the trailer, it looks like it's a fun, rollicking, good time,
Yeah.
and they're really pushing, because this is also around the same time MTV came out. They're pushing
Yeah.
the
Oh,
they're pushing
yeah.
the MTV and the
I mean,
music and all the
fucking
big
soundtrack on this. Ugh.
You could just own the soundtrack and enjoy the soundtrack. All
I know.
day long.
I wrote. I mean, you got soundtrack. You got the Police, Quincy Jones, Commodores,
She-
Oingo
she-
Boingo,
yeah,
Blondie,
Angie.
Journey. I mean,
Angie
you have
has
all of
the.
them.
She wrote it all.
You
out.
too.
Yeah,
We'll discuss you
Tommy
too later.
Two-Tone,
The Cars.
the Cars.
Yeah.
I mean,
The music is great.
it's
Yeah.
fabulous. I want to.
Amazing soundtrack.
I also want
It
to
is.
point out, though, that in the entire film, again, opened against Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the entire plot is handled in Fast Times at Ridgemont. It's one of the stories of Fast Times
Yeah, it
in
is.
Ridgemont
That's
High.
true.
The entire plot of everything except it has a happier ending in Fast Times at Ridgemont High than it does
Yeah,
in.
that's true.
But it's the exact same
Yeah, that's
story verbatim, almost in Fast Times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it
at
was a
least
lesser
one of
Fast
the plot
Times.
points in Fast Times, right?
But it's
Is that what you said?
it's what there's like
Well,
there's like
yeah.
4 different stories crammed into Fast Times.
Oh yeah, that's what
It
makes
took
that
the
great.
one. This is just the one story
exactly.
drawn out. But I don't think it's handled as well. I think Fast Times handled it
Handle
better.
it better.
And Fast Times also dips into the seriousness of being a kid or youth or in high school and back and forth between the comedy far better than this film handled it. I would argue.
Yes. I agree.
Never seen it.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Never seen it.
Neither have I.
A future episode.
I could almost stick it on a favorites list.
Movies
some
we
that's some old
haven't
Sean
seen
Penn.
but probably should have by now.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
you go. There's a topic.
That's a
for it.
good. Hey.
Movies we haven't seen but probably should have. by
listen-
now.
Jess, what were your thoughts on this movie? Just, I mean, like
Why-
overall, how did you feel about this movie?
Why was it called The Last
I
American
have that
Virgin?
exact same question.
By the middle of the movie, none of them are virgins.
Well, I think
Isn't that one kid still is?
No.
Did he?
Like he throws up afterwards, but
And
they all.
Let's not go.
Well, my question again, when I was a kid and you're watching it, I'm thinking the Last American Virgin is him. But when I
Right.
watched it as an adult again, I was thinking the Last American Virgin is her,
Her.
and the 2 friends who are fighting over to
Oh.
get the Last American Virgin. Well, again, his love rival in the
But
film.
rival?
I-
I mean, let's get into this.
I didn't hate this movie. I don't think as much as you do. I wouldn't say I like it, but I don't hate it. I kind of try to put myself in that era in the time. Think it was 1982 while I was watching it.
Mhm.
You know? So I enjoyed it for the story that it was, and the music did help.
You didn't find
Honestly, the music did help.
That's what carried me.
It
through
really
this
got me
movie.
through. It started with it must have started with the Cars
Yeah.
because I have that as my
the first song
note.
is "Teen Angel Eyes" by Tommy
Oh,
Two-Tone, but the
okay.
Cars is the
Shake it
second.
up, shake it
song.
up. I mean, shake it up.
Yeah.
Come
But
on,
I
what a
do
great song.
crack up when I watch it in that first party scene. I can swear I can hear the Foley artist working in the background, like making all the feet noises as they're dancing. It doesn't sound like them dancing. It sounds like the Foley artist
Oh,
working.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
But those are my initial thoughts.
It-
Angie.
Don't
So
hold back.
Jesse, none of the film made you cringe. None of it.
Oh my God.
Oh.
No.
Hang on.
Oh.
We got to back that up. That's not what she said.
When do you want me to tell you about the cringe-worthiest moment? Is the question.
There are a few cringeworthy
If
moments.
there's
in there.
there's one that tops them all. You just
There are scenes in there that I don't think you could get away with making.
Oh no.
Oh no, no.
when
absolutely not.
when they're partying with the 3 girls at the house,
Oh yeah,
and
that
she's
was
going, no,
I know.
stop,
Yeah, it's
no,
bad.
and
it's hard.
yeah.
it's
hard to
and she's
watch.
It's hard to
not
watch.
saying no and stop, right?
Well, yes, you couldn't get away with that, and rightfully so. Leave those scenes to the 80s
To the
movies
80s.
and just leave them in the past. Bye.
I didn't like it. Mostly because I'm like, the hijinks and the high school part of it, and like the guys being dumb high school guys doing dumb high school things. I'm just like, okay, it's just hijinks. But like the main plot, I have a problem with the main driving plot.
Mhm.
I have a problem with the main character
Mhm.
and his obsession.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. It's an obsession with this
Right.
girl that he doesn't even know. And we'll get into like how creepy he gets with this obsession.
Yeah.
And so
Big time.
and so
creepy.
it's like the background stuff that's going
Right,
on.
and
His friends being,
And I agree with you 100%.
Mhm.
But in 1982, 1983, when we were watching that film the first time, it never occurred to me that there was no justification for his love or feelings. Like when we watched it in 1980, I swear, none of my friends ever considered that. Like we all just accepted that. Oh yeah, he has a crush on her, because like we probably all individually had our own crushes that were walking around the school that had no idea we even existed.
well, crush is one thing, but he found out where she lived and then sabotaged her bicycle so he could like swoop in and try to be her savior, or her like
So you weren't.
what is it? Knight in shining armor.
Yeah, it was a very poor attempt at chivalry. I
It's
think
chivalry,
yeah.
but it's like contrived, and he made it happen, and it's really creepy that.
Didn't she have the weirdest looking bicycle too?
Well, was
Do
it
you
like a
remember
motorbike?
this?
It was a motorbike.
It was a
was.
motorbike.
It was like-
Yeah.
I
Why
sat
is
there.
that thing so-
I sat there and I paused it because it was weird looking, and I'm like,
Yes.
but then I saw it outside of the little diner that they hang out at, and I'm like, she rode her bicycle all the way to the diner, and then it hit me. It's like it's probably a motorbike.
This is weird.
Yeah.
I didn't remember, or he sabotaged her bike.
Yes.
Hold on. We're gonna.
I thought he just happened to be there.
We'll
No.
get to the. We'll get. Yeah. So you weren't a fan,
No.
Kevin?
I mean, I liked the music. I liked the music. That carried me through this movie. That made this movie better for me. It made this movie tolerable for me, because I mean, every one of those songs I loved. It was almost, I mean, I didn't even think about this when I was watching it, but 82, that was that was
MTV.
building MTV, right? And
Mhm.
these artists, they didn't have the commercial ability that they do now to be able to market their brand outside of their genre, outside of their target demographic, right? This and maybe this was a way for them to be, hey, I got a bunch of rock songs that are cool songs for cheap, just a bunch of needle drop songs. One thing I did notice though, as it relates to the songs, they started replaying songs.
They did.
At the
Yes.
end. They had that Commodore's the Oh No by the Commodores.
times.
3 times.
Well, I think some of the songs become themes for
They
different
did.
characters
Yes.
I
or
caught
moments
that.
or things going
Yes.
on.
And that was his theme. That was, what's his name? Gary? Is it Gary? It was Gary.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was his theme by the end of this movie, was Oh No by the Commodores. But I mean,
No, it
What-
was.
do I wanna
it was
watch-
just once, right? By Mark Ingram or whatever. I tried my best.
Yes.
Yes.
The
That was
song-
his.
the song-
That was his.
The songs were
song, yeah.
definitely telling the exact
Literal
literal story.
what's going on.
Of
And
what was going on.
it was like that scene in oh god, it's the South Park guys, or it's like Orgasmo, or no, it's Basketball, where he's driving, and the song in the radio is, and you're driving down the road, and you just had a fight with your friend.
Yeah. That's exactly.
But like by the end of the film, by the end of the flick, I mean, there's I don't remember a lot about this movie. I remember like bits and pieces about this movie, like the friend, like the chubby friend that wore the
David.
sunglasses.
Wait.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David. Yeah, I have
He
a happy,
gets-
I have a
he-
happy face.
yeah,
by my
David.
He gets a lot of the slapstick comedy.
Exactly, but again, it was just forgettable for me. I think the other movies that came out, the Fast Times, did it better. It did it more effectively, more efficiently, because this is a story in
Mhm.
Fast Times. This is 1/4 of the movie Fast Times that is expanded into 92 minutes. No, thank you. I'd rather watch Fast Times.
So it should shock no one. Andy hates this movie. I absolutely love this movie.
Really?
I absolutely love this. And maybe I don't have the Fast Times baggage, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I found it funny and it's problematic. Like this movie has like, wow. But I found myself laughing throughout most of the movie, and then how Andy hates the third act for what it did. I actually loved this ending. It was so fitting, and
Because he doesn't get her.
Spoiler alert.
Just if we're going
Come
to get
on.
into the ending, I want to say
82.
it's not just so much that he doesn't get her.
well, it's
The idea that she went right back to
I
to
understand.
Gary or
I understand.
whatnot.
It's
Rick.
horrible.
Who just came
But
back
I
from-
remember I watched the end of this movie and my mouth was open and I'm like, that's the end of this movie.
You didn't
and I was
expect
like,
it. You
and I
didn't expect
said, bravo. Like I could not believe that
at
was
the
end of
time,
this movie.
everyone was talking about that ending because that ending was so unexpected and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love.
Well-
And it reminded me of the Porky's movies, and it was like the whole titty porn, like
Yeah.
the titty 80s
It's a sex
movies.
farce. Yeah.
And I enjoyed. And
I don't know.
it was so out of
You
control.
enjoyed
Some
those?
of the stuff they do, I enjoyed the movie. I really did. I walked out of the movie like, how does Andy hate this movie? This is really funny.
It's originally my hate again. It's all about that end, and I've had people tell me that end is genius and it does everything, but for me, it just really ruined the whole.
But it's not. But like you said, to be clear, it's not because of the lead character didn't get the lead female love interest. It was that she went back to the.
That's what made it so
To
painful
his
for me
friend.
as a young boy watching
I
it.
can
It was
see
like,
how
oh,
that's
ah.
like one punch, two punch there.
Yeah.
I do see how that would annoy you.
Yeah.
I didn't like that she went back with him either. I'm thinking,
Because
What
he
is wrong
wasn't.
with you?
Rick's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's not a
Well,
good guy.
but he was a funny.
he was a fun. He was funny.
He was a fun, maybe not funny, but he was a fun character. I
Well,
watched
and
those
it's
three
weird
together.
how Gary and David treat him at some points in the movie just because he's dating.
So
the
there are
girl.
some things that I think that happened, and I think David was kind of playing both sides of it.
I think
To
it was
where
Yeah.
he was trying to be like the peacemaker of the group, and so he understood where Gary was coming from with some of it. But then later on, when Rick and Karen are off, and he's like, "Where are they at?" And then he's like, "Oh, I don't know." And then Victor is like, "Oh, well, you know, he's getting some underneath the football field." And he
Wait.
was like, and
Can
he
we
was.
talk about Victor?
Well, we will.
Well,
I'm only saying
we're gonna get to Victor.
he was trying not to tell Gary because he knew what Rick was doing, and he was just trying to make it so there wasn't an issue. And so I think he was just trying to like keep the peace between them because he realized, because remember when he's drunk, he's like, "Tell her I love her,"
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll tell her." And I think he realized then,
that's
this is a problem.
The other thing cracks me up is the drunk driving. Like
I even
you
said
can-
something.
You can't even.
All right.
He puts him in his car. And just
So, let's just
that's
do
how
this.
it was in the 80s, I guess.
So this movie starts out with Gary at the pizza place.
Mhm.
Now, this guy just lets him drive his car
Yes,
around. I
that was-
didn't understand that.
I have a note on here. Cool boss to let him use the company car for personal use.
Yeah.
Right?
He gets to use it all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And it's like, can I use the car? And the guy's like, what am I, a car rental service? Okay. Like,
Yeah.
what? You're like 16.
I also wrote down here. I've never seen a pizza logo that big
You
on
mean
a pizza delivery car. But
You
the
mean-
thing was
I think
pizza?
that was something they did back there. It was
it
in movies.
obnoxiously big.
Yeah.
Like this thing was taking up the whole.
See it-
made
see
me write
it
a
or be
note.
it.
If it made me write a note, it was important.
So they go to the party.
Yeah.
No.
No, first they go to the diner.
The diner.
They go to the diner
and they
and
meet
pick
the,
up
the
the three
three
chicks.
chicks.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yes.
but-
I wrote the party scene, but it was the.
That's my
The
favorite.
diner.
Where
By
was-
the way, this is where I am still, as a young man, enjoy the film. I love the picking up the three chicks. I love what happens
It
at the
was
house.
so
and they're snorting
funny.
the sweet and low.
The snorting-
Hold on.
Because the girls want drugs.
And they were
Yeah.
like they just want drugs.
I think
they don't even know what they.
I think the line was, "This is the best blow I've ever had."
when the one chick's like, she like looks at it, and you're like, is she gonna do it? And then she's like,
Yeah.
and she just keeps going.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah, yeah.
man, that was funny.
They came in there with a plate, with a pile. They're like, "Here's our cocaine. You want some?"
Yeah.
You know what's fucked up? The director, Boaz Davidson, or whatever his name is, and the producers from Canon Films probably thought that was real life. That's how real life is. Oh, yeah. I go to a party and
There's
people just come
mounds of
out with
coke.
mounds of cocaine. Yeah, that's normal. Here you go.
Well, I think
Well,
they
in
were,
the 80s.
they
I
were
mean,
making fun of kids in the
I think
80s wanting to
so.
do drugs and not even knowing what drugs are. Not even, I mean,
But are they,
I- no, I
are they
do-
making fun of kids in the 80s when it was
Kids at the
filmed
time.
in
Kids
the
at the
80s?
time.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Well, the girls were trying to impress them too.
Yes.
just as much as that. Like it was this weird. I do like the fact that it does to me capture that awkward teenage
yeah,
back and
that's true.
forth. They're trying to figure out. They want to grow up so fast. They want to grow up
nobody
so
ever
fast.
brought out a mound of Sweet and Low, but I've been in growing up in high school. There were situations like that.
Well, I mean,
Where the awkwardness of it.
It's
Not-
just the
you know.
awkward back and forth.
You and
They
your
went in-
friends have some girls, and you go to the house, and it gets awkward.
and then David takes her to the bedroom.
yeah,
And then they do that
Wait.
spectacular scene where they're making out and they're like running into him. Oh, that was so fun.
Dave-
and then they're like,
David
"Let's
goes out on the patio
count to 100.
to count to 100.
because you got to
So
set
she
up your
could undress-
joke.
so she could undress.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
Well,
who hasn't been in that situation?
But then
raise your hand now. We all
and then meanwhile Gary is and the girl who was with Gary and she's just like, I don't care. And she literally did not care because he's like trying to take off her bra and she's just like
She's
she's
like,
not
No, she's stuffing her face. She's just
eating chips.
Eating chips.
Would you like one? And
and he's trying to figure out because he can't get it. He can't get
he
it.
gets scissors. He gets scissors. And then the parents come home
Right.
and they say,
Fucking David.
it was so
Who's
funny.
still on the patio?
That was so
Still
funny.
on the patio counting to 100.
Oh, this is Millie. Millie meet my parents. She's got no shirt on. And then the other girl walks in with and then
Yeah,
With Rick.
topless, looking for a brush.
Which
or
is
something.
real quick, I think a very honest teenage reaction to getting your parents walking in on. She's like, Mom, Dad,
This is Millie.
this is Millie.
Yeah.
and then of course the parents, those parents, like
Yeah.
I thought to myself, I hope I'm never like this. Like they were like the mom was a big prude, and I get it.
You get to see the parents again
Later on,
yeah.
and but then the mom's like has to go to bed. No, don't touch me. And then of course David
Right.
comes back in.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Well,
it was
all the way to running to the car, getting into the car, and then they go, well, let's go to the beach, and they're having a good time just being teenagers. The movie is successful for me.
yes.
But it is after that scene that everything begins to take a
It's
sharp.
just hijinks. It's
Yeah.
just high school hijinks, and it's standard for the movies of the time.
So Gary had seen Karen at the diner, and this is where they're at school. And he tells David, "Do you know where she lives?" And he says, "Oh, for a small fee, I can find that out for you." And this is what Angie's talking about, where he goes to her house, deflates her tire, sits in the
Do we
street.
see that
He
scene? Yes.
sees
Okay.
that.
You see it.
He sits in the street.
I think I remember it
and
now.
waits
Okay.
for her to come out.
I know
And-
that I know
no.
that he saved her.
Lays and wait.
Yeah.
I even wrote deflating a tire is something a serial killer would do.
Yes.
Sociopath.
Hey, could you help me with this couch?
And so then he's like, "Oh, do you need some help? I'm going to school." And then they do the great scene where he's like, "What's your name? Karen? Heron? Laren? Why didn't you say so?"
It's Karen with a K.
Hey, yeah. Oh, that movie.
So
That's
cringy.
important to his last, when he's gets her the gift.
Speaking of Karen, did anybody recognize Karen? You know where she comes up again? You know, anybody in another wonderfully beloved 80s movie starring John Cusack?
One Crazy Summer.
No, the other one. Better Off
Better
Dead.
Off
Yeah.
Dead.
Better Off
She
Dead.
is the French foreign exchange student from
Diane
Better
Franklin.
Off Dead.
She's so much better in that film.
I know.
And Better Off Dead is such a great. If
Oh
you were,
my God.
if we were doing like great 80
I know,
comedies,
that would
you
be
would
on
have
there.
to. Yes,
Absolutely.
$2.
This one?
Cash.
Not so much.
Yeah, give me that category.
Give
80s
me my
comedies.
$2.
I love
Exactly.
that.
I want my $2. Anyways, we digress.
digress.
Be it.
So there you go. There's,
Come back
there's-
in.
yeah.
Really?
And we're back.
Just a couple of
Okay, what you got?
notes. The blonde chick that's with Karen.
Yep.
Like her friend.
Rose.
Her
You mean-
bangs.
You mean the QED report girl from
Yes.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead?
Oh,
Is
I
that
know
who
her.
that is?
I know her from Twin Peaks. She's the
that's right.
secretary.
Oh my God.
She's the police officer's secretary.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Yes.
Never seen Twin Peaks.
Best
Yeah,
television
she's
show.
the
But
ever.
QED report
her
girl.
bangs are the reason I don't do bangs because I'm so scared that they're gonna turn out looking like that. They're so bad.
I don't understand
And-
too why Gary was so opposed to going out with Rose. Like just
She was all over.
She
it
was
was
all
one of those
about him.
things where she was not interested. He was not interested. In
He was
her.
fixated on
because
Karen.
of his obsession.
And
You're
in
my
the
obsession.
in the scene where they pick up the three girls and the Rick is having sex with the girl. She tells him, "I'm not on the pill," and he's just like,
I'm
"I
not
don't
either.
care."
No,
Oh, I'm not either.
Not either. Oh, I laughed.
And as an adult, and I'm
Well,
just
they're
like,
setting up how
I'm
bad Rick is.
yes, and it's just
That's
like,
what I'm saying. He's not a good guy.
He's
No,
not a good
He's
guy.
one of the guys, though.
He's
He
not.
is-
He's not a good.
No, the
person.
the thing about this is none of them are good guys.
None
None
of them are-
Even David is
That's true.
not a
You
good
don't think
guy.
He's the
Gary's a good
lesser of
guy.
three evils, but he is not a good guy either.
Yeah, no, they do some horrible things that we'll get to. But then they catch Victor looking through the peephole, and this I could not believe this scene. I just could not believe
That
this was
scene-
happening.
well, and I'm sitting there. The peeping Tom scene.
yeah.
Wait,
Well, what
the-
comes
or the
right
measure-
after
Happened
it?
in
Which
Porky.
part of it?
Or the
which
measuring
part of it?
scene.
you
Oh, well,
can-
what comes after? So
Yeah,
and
Kevin, do you remember when you were in high school and you had a penis measure off? Because I sure don't.
You mean a literal dick measuring contest?
This actually.
Well,
wait.
Yeah,
and
Do
then
you guys actually do this?
Yeah.
No, it's
that
when
was
you're,
my
it's when you're
question.
standing at the
Hey,
urinal when you
hey.
go, man, this water's cold, and the guy next to you says, and deep too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, can you pause this? Me and Kevin and Andy are going to go to the bathroom. Get the measuring tape out.
as I'm watching this scene, I'm just like, they are
Wait, which
really
scene?
comfortable.
Which-
the scene
which-
where they're
which one?
measuring. So they
Okay,
walk
the
they
measure
walk they walk in
So
on the
'cause they
nerd.
tell
Yeah.
Victor,
They walk in on what appears to be like
Fucking Victor.
the ubiquitous nerd,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, and he's peeping on
The chick.
the
Right.
the
The
chick,
chick.
side.
Because there's
of-
always
they're-
a whole. Y'all didn't know
Always.
that when you
Yeah,
were
They're-
always.
in PE class, you go into the
But
shower.
the locker
It's
room.
it's in Porky's. It's in
It's-
this
yeah.
movie.
It's
in
that
every-
scene. It's that scene
And
that's
so
in
they
every
say-
one of
In
these movies.
Porky's, it was the freaking movie.
There's one.
poster
There's a
for
there's a
Porky's.
shower scene in private school with when they're dressed as women. They end up in the anyway. Another idea.
But-
so then they say Victor's got a heart on, and then he says, "Well, mine's bigger."
That's
No,
right.
Yes.
no. Somebody makes a comment, something to the effect of, "You can't even see it, or it's small," or. And he's just like, "Oh, I bet I'm bigger than all of you." And
then
what
they-
are you supposed to
and
do
so
when somebody
you
says
take the
that?
bet.
Yep.
Obviously, you
You
pull
take
out
the
your
bet.
ruler.
Oh, they
And
didn't
you
take just a
whip
bet.
out your ice
They
cold.
threw
And-
everybody
And
in.
so
on
then
it.
the worst part was, so they all line up, and Gary and David are doing it, and they as happy as pigs in slop, like measuring these guys.
Let's
dick.
see it.
Right.
No,
They are-
We're
they-
not measuring from your asshole. We're measuring from the base of the ball.
Fine, 9.5 inches. I was just, I was appalled. Like this movie actually had this. This is happening.
Their face is all up in these people's junk.
Yeah.
They can smell
David and
the
Gary
junk.
they were all
It's
into
a
it.
gym
And
class, right?
This is gym
Yeah.
after gym because they're walking into.
They should have been
Exactly.
taking showers
locker
and not
room.
measuring one another, but that's what happens sometimes, I guess.
I guess I was like, and I'm just like, does this happen? Are men normally this comfortable around other guys' junks?
Not in high school.
No.
Not at that age. I don't
As
think.
someone like I played football, and we all took showers after the end of football practice. You had to,
Yeah.
but we never like broke out the measuring tape.
Measuring tape.
Like that never occurred. No one was like literally. I'd stand up and they'd sit on a bench, dick level with me, staring at my dick. It just never happened. Like,
Dick joust level.
Dick jousting.
No crossing swords.
I challenge you
All right.
to a
Mark
dick
his
joust.
length and mark my length.
I just it was
And the little like panning of the camera of the line of guys with their little hard-ons and their
All
little tidy
waiting.
whities. All waiting. Just like,
Let's do this.
Yeah.
oh my God. That whole scene was just like,
I was shocked.
This
shocked.
didn't, this didn't happen.
And
at the
Paul.
pole.
This didn't happen.
It happened.
So, in your
They
experience,
had a literal
dick off.
penis measuring
But not
contest.
in real life. Y'all didn't.
Like you guys.
I'm not getting.
Yeah. Y'all didn't?
No, we did not measure our dicks.
No, we didn't. No, right? Never. Not once.
No.
You don't go for like how you know what?
No.
I'm done.
No.
I'm gonna back off.
Yeah, don't finish that one.
That's,
That's-
yeah.
that's a-
that is the best course of action.
So to move on, so they go to the.
So that scene shocked you.
yes,
And appalled.
and appalled,
And the pole.
and or appalled.
Shocked
but
and
you
or appalled.
you still
Your
enjoyed
choice.
it. Yeah.
I will
Still, I, as I said, there were a lot of problems
tell
with
me.
this movie. I enjoyed this movie. But so then they go to the party.
Yeah.
And Gary sees Rick, and David even says, "Man, look at him. He's already got pulling it, and blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah." And then Gary starts taking drags off of a Jack Daniels bottle.
huge Jack
I could
Daniels
not.
bottle.
I was
my
like,
God.
"Oh
Yes.
wow!" And I even wrote, "Is this guy a future alcoholic?" Because man,
I went to school with a person that did this on we partied when he was and drank a complete bottle of Jack Daniels, and I got to see him go through every stage of drunkenness within the span of about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
so a Gary span.
Yeah, in a Gary span. Exactly. And oh my God, that's not a pretty sight. That is not a pretty sight.
In this scene, I did appreciate that the song that's playing when he sees Rick and Karen, Better Luck
But
Next Time.
Yes.
I even wrote that better.
Yes.
Man, what,
It tells the story.
It does.
that was so good.
It's
I wish
the
more
music
movies
is
would
just
do
like,
this.
"Ah,
Yeah, yeah.
better luck
That-
next time, buddy.
The only, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Baby Driver does the exact same thing.
Yeah, Baby Driver's really
Baby
good.
Driver
Have
is
seen
a
it.
fantastic movie. Does the exact same thing. Music drives that entire movie.
I just don't remember it.
It's good.
It was a
I
good
remember
movie.
Baby Driver. I don't remember the music. I remember you listen to music. I remember they played it.
Yeah,
I didn't really catch it.
Listen to the music
It's a-
and
This
the
one, like,
music is actually
hits you
a
over the head.
character in Baby Driver. Really.
Yes,
big
it
time.
is. Also in this scene, they're dancing, right? And they stop dancing and they come. He's like, "Hey, come meet my friend." And he's like, "Oh, hey, Karen." And she's like, "Oh, hey, what's
Gary.
his name? Hey, Gary." And he's like, "Oh, you two know each other? Or you two have met before?" And Gary's like, "Yeah, I guess you could say that." But he's like super like, "I guess you could say we met before."
Well,
Like,
Because in his head, they're
I
dating.
guess you could say we met because I let the air out of her tires
he's-
like a stalker.
seriously
I'm gonna murder
offended.
her
Well,
soon.
and he goes completely off the rails.
Yes.
He follows her into the bathroom
Yeah.
with the Jack Daniels bottle and is
Yeah.
just like straight talking shit to her. And she's like, "What's your problem?"
Yeah.
I
yeah, and
He's-
he's
he's-
immediately
Mhm.
like stalker level obsessed with this girl and is
Yeah.
like, I guess, made up in his mind this relationship that doesn't exist.
Yep.
And his like, he is so severely offended that she is like,
Mm.
I guess you could.
And
Dude,
that's
You just met her this morning. You literally.
right. And that's
Pretty
a big
much.
problem these days. I mean, that's the whole
But that's-
incel community, the
She's-
rejection of
She doesn't belong to you.
exactly.
Nope.
She
That's a
doesn't
real
belong to
problem.
anybody.
It's like her letting you give her a right to school does not entitle you to her genitalia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
wait. That,
Or fixing your phone.
That's
with
not how this
flat
works.
tire.
Yeah.
No.
man, I got so much to learn.
The more you know.
Do.
And so then Gary gets like,
When are we going to talk about Camilla?
she's coming up.
Oh, she's coming up. She's next.
She's plastered. He gets plastered drunk. And David, the great friend he is, oh yeah, just drive home.
Yes.
Just, he
I
can
love
barely
that.
walk.
Yes.
Well, they just need to get him out of the party. He has to leave the party.
Yeah, but I mean,
But then that sets up the
I
great
even
scene.
wrote, what a time to be alive.
Again-
Dude can barely walk.
again-
Just drive home.
Right.
Right. But you get the wonderful scene when he gets home and he's
Oh.
drunk and the ladies are all in the living
Oh,
room.
yeah.
Oh,
This is my
sweet
son.
scene.
Yeah. Oh,
Isn't that
But he's like, is he like being like saying like innuendo to
Yes.
his mom's friend?
about how he loves her. And I even wrote, coming home drunk. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Mom,
Yeah.
if you're listening, you remember that time.
Yeah.
And so then I want to say was that they go back to the diner, and he asked him to come home for the keys to the grandma's house. Yes, he asked for keys to his grandma's house.
He says no.
And then he's like, okay. But then when he shows up,
He doesn't have.
he doesn't have the keys. And that's when he's like, all you talk about is Karen, and you don't even care about us. And we're banging this redhead 9 times. Or did I skip
No,
ahead?
you skipped Camilla.
Camilla. Oh,
When he's delivering pizzas.
When he's
he has
delivering
Carmella.
pizza.
That's Camilla, the
horny
sailor's,
housewife?
the sailor's wife.
Yes.
I'm surprised they didn't name her.
Paco.
Well,
I love
is he a
when Paco
sailor?
says
Is that what he is?
Paco's wife.
Yes.
Yeah, she says my Paco's on the sea.
Oh, my husband.
Oh.
Paco.
Yeah.
He is a sailor.
And they have him walk in and like, is he a sailor in the 1800s?
And he's like, he had all sleeves rolled up in a beret.
And a little canvas bag over his shoulder. Just
They might as well be like, I am a hearty sailor.
But wait, that's not the. He doesn't show up then.
Home on
Oh, but
leave.
first-
She propositions him.
Well,
First they gotta
she's-
they run a train. Is
Well,
what
he
really
just-
happens.
But not the first time. She
He- no,
propositions.
yeah.
Oh, she
him.
propositions
She's
the
trying to
first
have
time.
sex with
Yes.
Gary. Gary doesn't know what to do.
And
Right.
he leaves.
And
Yeah,
he leaves. And then he gets his
And then they
friends,
come back.
which makes perfect sense. Let's
Right?
get my
You go
friends.
get your
Yeah.
buddies.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get
Well, and Rick
Strength
was
in
on.
numbers,
Rick
my
was on
friend.
board.
Strength in
And they
numbers.
go ahead and grab some pizzas on the way back. So they're going to Carmella's to
They
have a
have their
pizza
ruse.
party.
Yes.
the pantomiming in the car when he picks up his friends. It's just like next level. Like when he's explaining to them why they're going to see this woman's to this woman's house. He's like, the arms in front of his chest and just the pantomiming is.
Giant knockers.
And Rick is a man. Rick is a man of the world. He knows what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like
Rick
they
is
all
a-
start dancing, and then he goes like dancing into the bedroom. Like he's like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's get this done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rick is not a good guy.
And then they sit there and watch through a keyhole.
Yeah.
It was.
But wait. Okay, so we jump.
Go ahead. I'm skipping ahead.
But we did jump forward to the second rendezvous where so she brings everybody there. I wrote down, just like Nikki in Casino has his gross move, Rick's move is rubbing a girl's butt. I think he did that a couple times. Like he would
Okay.
dance.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
That was
I don't
his
know if you
thing.
remember.
That was his
I
signal.
just want to be clear.
Maybe he didn't with Carmela, but he did it
That's
with.
a gross move.
Yes, that's gross. Don't do it.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, to
Wonder
me
if
that
he's striking
scene.
out.
Okay, so we'll go back to the scene where all three show up because I thought Gary. So to me, Gary couldn't believe this was happening to him. He was being propositioned for sex by an older married woman.
Mm-hmm.
Got his friends, said, "You got to see this to believe it." Brings them, and then she proceeds to say, "Okay,
Next.
Yeah.
Next.
you."
I'm next. Carmella getting lonely, and here come your big boy.
She is so over the top.
Yes,
She is
it's
so
ridiculous.
over the top.
Ridiculous, but yeah, they're all watching.
Her and
It was
Paco are so over the top, like cartoon.
And then Paco
Yes,
shows
they
up.
really are.
And then it's like a big slapstick routine
Yeah.
with David
Oh,
running.
David.
And David like runs out
They'd
with
like to
his
have
underwear.
the David running in his underwear.
Oh, my clothes. It's like,
Yes.
you would really go back, dude? Like, just keep going.
Right?
And,
And did you just now realize that?
no, and like they're waiting their turn, and they're just
Yeah.
standing there in their underwear.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Apparently, them.
Well, and then when
But
it's
how
their
is that?
turn,
So another movie does this, but it's set in a different time period. Biloxi Blues does that with Matthew Broderick. It's set in World War II, I believe. And they go see, they're soldiers. They go to their boot camp and they go to a woman in red.
Bordello.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they
ill repute.
yes, exactly. And they strip down to their skivvies.
But that's different.
I
She's
know
not
that
a-
you're absolutely. it's-
I think there's a scene in Porky's or one of the Porky's that's
well,
quite
the
like
crazy,
Same
the
kinda
crazy
idea.
part
Yeah,
is,
But
This
Porky's
is
is
a-
actually set in the 50s, though.
yeah, yeah.
this is the first of two times they stand in line.
Yes, that's true.
The next scene, they're at the diner again, and he couldn't get the car,
Mm-hmm.
so they take
Victor.
Victor's car,
Oh, okay.
and then
So, yes.
they go to
This
the
was-
beach.
This was so. Hold on. This was they get Victor's car and they get him to go get Cokes and they steal his car basically.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is I just got it painted," and he didn't even want them to park it.
Right.
And so they go out and so they're all. And Gary, if you watch his face, he's all happy about doing this whole routine of trying to steal Victor's car. Yeah. And the moment the girls get in the car, he's moping.
Because he's with the wrong girl.
Yep. And he finally breaks down and starts making out with Ruby, and they knock the parking brake off. Rose, whatever. She drives into the ocean, and they're just like jumping up and down.
And they're just frolicking.
Yeah.
They're just like, so much fun. We just destroyed this vehicle that doesn't even belong to us.
Then they go
Why
back
do you think they don't care?
Then they go back to school the next day, and it's never mentioned. Like, there's no repercussions for anything. Victor's doesn't even say anything.
That's weird.
It's the lovely 80s.
I don't know why.
It's the wonderful 80s.
Yeah, I wrote down.
Consequence.
No remorse, no
Exactly.
consequence.
But,
no empathy.
Which I agree, but later, that's one thing I do enjoy about this movie is they do start showing consequences to some of their actions.
That is true. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Some,
but some might.
One.
Yeah.
Well, and there's
the consequence to Ruby.
Yes, that's the one.
Oh yeah, that's and Ruby.
And now it's Ruby's
And
turn.
so then that's when he asks for the key in the stairway of the school after that. And he's like, okay. And then they get to the diner again. And they're like, this is where David is even like, yeah, you're never around. It's only about Karen and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And we're banging this redhead that my brother's banging or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they go to Ruby, and all of a sudden they're like,
have no idea what they're doing.
Yep.
Right.
And then Rick, who, by the way, is in love with Karen. And he's already screwed the Camilla.
Right.
Yeah.
Quotation marks.
And Ruby,
Quote, unquote,
he's the
love.
one who's like, so what are we doing here, guys? Like, let's get this going.
And I
Go
don't think
bang
he's
this
in
chick.
love with Karen so much as he wants to get in there.
Get in, yeah. And so then they go to the flop house.
All up in there.
Well,
the basement.
I don't know where they're at.
Well, I wrote that
It's
down
like a
on my notes.
junkyard.
I wrote down, where did they go to have sex?
It's like a pawn shop or something.
It's like an abandoned
I
warehouse.
wasn't real sure about that either.
I know.
Yeah.
It looks like an abandoned.
And why
But
does
there's
she...
nice
the problem?
there's a nice couch in there.
So do y'all remember the Dave...
Is it
No,
nice
it was
though?
not a nice
Ew.
couch at all.
Do y'all remember the Dave Chappelle skit where he talked about... I mean, it wasn't a skit. It was a stand-up where he was talking about how you just talk like a 1930s gangster. You're not going to get me, copper.
Man.
Why did Ruby talk like that?
Because she was a woman of ill repute.
It was just, y'all are cramping my style.
It's
and
just
blah,
like
blah,
it's just like
blah.
Carmela and Paco were cartoon
Listen,
characters gone a little too
this
far. Ruby was a prostitute.
And
Cartoon.
so they gave her
Gone
a
too far.
prostitute voice.
Right. She's
And
smoking
this
a
is
cigarette.
where my theory starts. Ruby, at some point, eventually, in her side story, in her future story, Ruby moves to Las Vegas and becomes Henrietta from Showgirls.
Is that the
love
big lady
that.
with
Yes.
the boob
Yeah.
thing?
I fucking love that.
So Gary breaks his virginity. I guess he's no longer
Breaks it.
breaks it. Whatever.
He breaks it.
Well, I know.
Right now.
And so this
you-
also.
I thought you just
He
lost
loses it.
Well, I
Or
don't
do
know.
you-
Well, I mean,
Is there a difference?
look,
No,
when you
he broke
it.
yeah.
So you think he is the last American
I don't
virgin?
know.
And this is where
I assumed it. You kind of make sense, but I'd assume that this is when he lost his virginity.
I
which
thought so
it-
too. We all
well,
thought so
'cause
in the 80s.
she made it
too,
seem very
that
clear.
This was the scene.
And then I know this. I think also becomes problems with him later in life when he starts because when you had sex for the first time, I don't remember going to the bathroom and puking.
No?
We all remember that first
That
time when we
didn't,
went to the bathroom.
I think that
Puked.
Hey guys, you remember your first time?
so I think when he's killing hookers in the
Later.
90s, later on in life, that this was probably one of the triggers of like what caused him to hate women so much because I don't oh, you're all right, man. And he just goes and pukes. Like it was that bad.
Because I remember my first time. I nailed this girl and then just went to the bathroom and threw up all over the place.
All
I
night long.
ripped my guts out. I mean, I threw up things that came from my
Is it because
feet.
the Ruby discussed him so much, or is it because he discussed himself because he did something that betrayed Karen?
I think that may be.
I think it's that.
But I did love,
And that goes to show Angela's point of he is a delusional, deranged
his
psychopath.
obsession is unwarranted.
Absolutely.
But I did enjoy when David is all, "Oh, a busy night tonight." And she says, "Are you gonna interview me or are you gonna fuck me?"
Great line.
Does David have a super huge allowance?
He pays for everything.
Or does he have a job that we don't know about? Because he pays for everything and he keeps a little notebook, but when are you ever going to cash in on it?
Yes. And so they all take their turns, and then they're itching in the class, which is so funny. And then they go to
believe me, I enjoyed that they all three got crabs.
You got the crabs.
And I enjoyed that
The pharmacy scene.
And then they go to the pool to try to drown them, and then they go to the pharmacy. And you know what? And that's one of the things I liked about the movie. I was like, I guess I'm glad that they came across the pharmacy guy didn't judge him, and he was just like, "Oh, of course I got medicine for you."
I mean, he laughed at them.
Well, he made them
laughed,
tell
but-
them. He made him. Didn't he make them tell the truth or something like?
Well, because they kept saying,
Well,
"I have
because they kept
lice,"
asking for the wrong thing.
and then they're like, "Lice." Yeah. Well, it's not really lice. And the guy's like, "Let me see your hair."
Right.
And then they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Which I think in his way was his own way of sort of
making him say it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's an adult.
to your
I think that's an
sins.
adult thing to do.
But then he laughs and he's just like, "At your age, look at you,
And then-
being all sexually active and getting crabs."
Bang.
Yeah, all three of you.
was it
Same
Ruby?
strain.
Was it my?
Told you to stay away from that Ruby.
No, he's like, "Is that my wife, Ruby?"
God damn it, Ruby. I told my wife we ain't banging no young kids no more. Same strain of crabs I got.
In that weird cellar with the couch.
I don't quite get where well they thought they could drown them. Like why they thought being in the pool.
Because they're
kids.
teenagers.
The kids,
Okay.
I liked that. I liked that the stupid things kids. Well, hey guys, well, just sit in a pool for 3 hours.
Yeah, I
while
mean,
they
it's got
take care of
chlorine in it.
made
It must kill him.
It's kind of one of the reasons I did like this movie because some of the
Dumb stuff that they did.
some of the things they come up with
Because
as a group.
the teenagers did teenager things.
Yeah.
It wasn't teenagers acting like 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of
Well-
like the newer teen dramas or like
Yeah.
That's true.
So
They
it
wanted to
was
grow up-
teenagers doing dumb teenager things, trying to be older than they really are.
Yeah.
So like today, if you made this movie, they'd be doing what? Eating Tide Pods or
No. Well, no.
No, because now they'd be on their Apple iPhones.
But think of a movie
comparing expensive shoes.
Think of a movie like American Pie.
Yeah.
Which is very
90s.
similar.
I think that's an updated version.
That's a 90s version of this.
All they wanted to
Yeah,
do
it
was
is.
have sex. Remember, we want to go to have sex before we go to
college.
And that was a truly last American virgin type thing. Yeah. This was they just went. They were
they were in high school and they were having sex with all kinds of crazy situations.
I would go with Andy's perspective of the title, the reasoning behind the title. Karen is the last American virgin, and it's the race to deflower the last American virgin is
Right.
what.
But it wasn't. I mean, in the reality, it was like one guy was running and the other guys like had their shoelaces tied together.
Exactly. Like he was in a sack
one
race.
guy was like
going
dating
the
her.
opposite way.
One guy was dating her and had her interest, and the other guy was his friend.
No. One guy was actually at the starting line and running the race. The other guy was watching it on TV. He wasn't even involved in it.
No, he was on like the home and garden channel.
But somehow in his head he did develop this. But to go to that though, when you get to the point in that third act where you take the heavy turn,
Exactly.
and Rick tosses her aside.
So we get to right there because we're right
We've
there
been
now.
talking about this movie for an hour. And
Oh
we're
my
just
God.
now to the third act.
It feels like 10 minutes. So they go to the diner.
Yeah.
And that's when he finds out that he took her to the thing. And then poor Victor, he's just saying the truth. Oh, he took her. You know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's going to. And David just waylays that poor dude.
Yeah.
David or Gary?
David, because
David.
Gary leaves. Remember to go
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
To go stalk him.
David can't believe that Victor told Gary that.
Yes, and he just like whack knocks it, and he's like, asshole, dude. They've slapped him, stolen his car,
That's why I
ruined his
said poor
car.
Victor.
And yet he still talks to these people. I don't.
Well,
And
that's
yet he hasn't had them arrested.
well, that's kids.
And so then Gary goes and like
Follows them.
peeps through the bleachers and watches them,
Yep.
and then he sits in there and waits.
And lays and waits.
He just sits there and waits. And then Rick's like,
Lazy.
He goes
"Hey,
back to
man."
the diner and waits
And
for
of
them to
course,
show
Rick's
up.
all, yeah, hey man.
Yeah.
And then she shows up, and then he gets all upset, like she cheated on him.
Yeah.
Like it was you're right. He's delusional. He has a
And
relationship
then
with her that
his entire reaction is so disproportionate because you saw them, and it
I
made
saw
me
them leave.
it made me question, like, did I see the scene that I thought I saw? Because he follows them to the bleachers, he peeps in on them, he sees what they're doing, and then he drives away, goes back to the diner. They come back to the diner after they're done doing the deed, and then he's just like, "Where have you been?" "Oh, at the bleachers," or wherever. It's like, "What were you doing?" And then he tells them, "Oh, I got in there, and I was the first guy. I was the first one
guy, yep.
to get in there." And he's just like, "You're a liar. I mean, he goes off on him. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
believe you. You're a fucking liar.
Yeah. It's
But
weird.
you saw it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
did your own lying eyes deceive you?"
Yeah.
I think he deluded himself to believe
Gary
that
has
it
some
never
issues.
happened. I think that's what he did.
And then she comes and she's just, because of course she
She's
doesn't
all- she's
understand.
glowing.
She doesn't understand that any of this is happening in his head.
It's a pregnant woman's glow.
Right.
That was quick. It's like she doesn't.
I
and so
think
she
for her it
doesn't.
was just that one time. Yeah.
She doesn't.
Well,
Well,
You
we
don't know.
Yeah.
But she doesn't understand what's
I
going
think
on
she
in
says
Gary's
it.
head. And she's just like, "Hey, Gary, what's going on?" And he just gives her this "you whore" look.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "What the?
What
I
did
don't
do?
understand." And he just stalks off. Just that whole scene is bizarre.
Yeah.
I want to say that she did when she's talking to Rick or when
In the library.
yeah, in the library scene, I think she makes it clear that was her first time.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure.
I don't-
but
Well,
I think
and she
Get
he-
away, your buzz off. I told you, we're done.
right.
Like, whoa, you are.
Yeah.
Rick
is not a good guy.
Yeah.
I've said it, I don't know how many times in this episode. He is not a good guy.
No, he's not. And he admitted that it was her first time.
Okay.
When he's telling Gary, he's like, "I was the first one in there."
Yeah. It
It's
was out
super
there.
gross.
But, yeah.
So that she hadn't been
And
with
so do you
anybody
think?
else.
So do you think that he just broke up with her before she found out she was pregnant?
No.
No, I think he broke up with her because she
I
was
think
pregnant.
she told
Yep.
he was all about it. I think he liked her, but he wasn't
Until
ready
she got
for that.
pregnant.
Right. I
And-
think that was, same
He
here.
Yeah.
was he liked her enough to
Oh,
have fun
'cause you're
with her, but not
ruining-
enough to be
Right,
serious
like,
about her.
because they were going to continue
Oh,
having
he wasn't
fun.
going to let her
Yeah.
ruin his life.
Yeah, you're ruining my life. Get out of here.
In his perspective, yes. Wait.
So Gary, of course, sees this confrontation,
Yes.
and then he follows her out, and she's crying in the hallway,
He gets his white knight armor.
and
Yep.
he puts on his, and
His
then
shining armor.
Open Arms starts playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
When she tells him what's happening, and
Yeah,
of course
it's
he's just
tough.
like, "Here I am with
Yeah.
open arms."
Yeah.
And he goes and borrows money.
Oh yeah, he worked.
Oh,
He
yeah, he
hustles.
does.
Oh,
He
his
becomes
ass
and
off.
real quick,
superhero.
It's
they-
my moment to
He
shine.
gets her into grandma's house, and he starts playing house
But
with
wait,
her.
Yes.
Breakfast.
We haven't got. You go.
The scene with the van where all the kids are going off to ski.
Mhm.
He's already moved on to like some other blonde chick. Rick's already
Yes.
moved
Yeah.
on.
Oh,
He's like
skiing
he's
with-
he's
yeah.
already moved on to.
You know what? Rick is not a good guy.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this.
Um,
At some point in the film, you need
And
to realize
how old are
Rick
they?
is
That
not a
their
good guy.
parents are just like, yeah. Oh, I guess it's the 80s, but the parents are just like, yeah, go ahead, take off
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
winter holidays for
That's
Christmas.
what we did.
I'm like,
Right?
And so they
Yeah.
go and then he hustles.
well, they go, and Gary does not, and he
Yep.
stays back.
Yeah.
He stays behind for
Stays back with
for
Karen.
a
Yeah.
very important reason.
for a very special episode of
Yeah.
The Last
And-
American
yeah,
Virgin.
exactly. Now we get into the
Third
Yeah.
act.
after school special
Well-
version of this.
I do love the fact that
I-
after the procedure, he brings her a Christmas tree and some grapefruits.
And a bag of grapefruits. I have, to your point, I put, on my notes, he's so happy to be playing house with her.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's
he
so
has her
happy.
grandma's house. They're playing house.
And he tells her,
He
I'm
thinks they're
going
a
to take
couple.
care of it. I'm going to save you from this.
I'm your man.
And here's my deal. I know that 80s movies, I don't know if it was part of the contract, but they all had to have a montage scene.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
do.
Was this really the
Absolutely.
the top
The
the
Appropriate
most
time.
appropriate topic
montage use.
to have a montage?
Worst
It's a-
montage
because-
in movie history.
Because how
Right.
he's going
It's
to
a
fix
strange
it
place
is
for the montage.
an abortion.
yeah.
And the abortion is a montage
We're
It's the
gonna
most
get an
un-
abortion.
with the most upbeat music playing over it.
Because he's so
It says,
excited and
it
happy.
says, I will follow by you two. That is the theme to her abortion.
Wait, is
It's
that,
like super upbeat. And it's just like,
when that was playing when they were
it's
That was
Gary's
playing
movie,
for the
not
whole-
hers.
her
It's what
to sit
he's
putting
yeah.
a robe on.
He's
or-
excited.
I didn't catch the song that was playing. In
well,
He could
and
be
I looked
happier.
it up. I looked up the song name because it's so upbeat.
He's
And
riding.
it's such a serious.
Of course, he's riding
But,
his
you gotta-
horse in his white knight armor. He's
Well,
saving
but
the
you-
day.
Let's
thinks
talk
he's
about
get-
this. It was. I don't remember the song. I don't know why I don't, because I feel like I usually would. But the montage you're speaking of, it was very clinical. Like, to me, when I was watching it, it was very cold, clinical.
Mhm.
I mean,
Which I
guess
have
that
no
makes-
problem with that.
I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, it was very like.
Very matter of fact.
Okay, the worst part of the scene was the last scene, or the last part of the montage.
I don't
They're
know
doing
what
the montage. Well, so she goes, and then I guess what you're talking about is they cut into Gary's life, and then they go back to her signing papers, and they go back to something else, and then they go back to her putting the robe on and talking to a doctor, and they go back to something else. Then they come back to her, and they lay her down. And she's looking like up at the light, and they're, she's about to have an abortion. Then they go back to Gary, and then the next scene they cut to is a pizza being sliced by a pizza slicer.
Fucking genius.
Oh my God. How did I miss that?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember
That is so awful. That is some horrible imagery.
cutting out a slice of pizza.
Just put,
I'm surprised they didn't just like put some strawberries in a blender.
God damn.
Damn, Angela. Wow.
And the top wasn't on, and then just went.
And everywhere. Just,
my God.
I don't know how I missed that, Jess. I
It was
completely.
bad. That's what
I think I was still so like perplexed that this is what they chose to do a montage scene over that I just
Yeah.
completely missed the pizza slice.
The 80s montage.
And they were like number 22, and they were like slicing that pizza.
Yeah.
And I didn't like her
you're
reaction.
Right. The timing and placement of the pizza slicing is purposeful.
Oh,
Yes,
it is.
yes,
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
I missed it, and I can't believe I missed it. But
Yeah,
yes,
no, it
there's
is.
no way that was by accident.
It's
And
a
then when she
metaphor.
wakes up, she starts giggling.
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
She's laughing, and I guess because she feels relieved because now this very big problem is
Gone away.
no longer
Mhm.
a problem. But I'm like, that is. I don't feel a super appropriate reaction,
Well,
but
I
I've
think,
never been in the situation.
and
so
I think as a adolescent, I'm not saying that Boaz Davidson or whatever his name is and the wonderful producers at Canon Films were this deliberate, but I think as an adolescent, you do have improper reactions at
Yeah.
no, yeah,
At times,
no, absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
You're right.
I can remember being a kid and just being laughing at a funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I've done
Okay,
that.
yeah.
and that's
And,
You
not
just
re-
have-
and you don't really understand the ramifications
exactly.
of what's going on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I just kind of answered my own question when I guess the relief of it all.
Again, I don't want to give credit to the people that made this movie to be that deep with it, but
It could make sense.
But
just in
it's-
case they are.
I mentioned cold and clinical when it came to those scenes, and from what I understand from the research I've done, the clinics that do help women in these situations and that do have come to them for help
Services available
when they really need help are very kind. These people are very kind and caring, the doctors, the nurses, and all of that. And today. So I'm watching a movie from 1982, knowing what I know today. So it was kind of weird to me that it was portrayed so cold and clinical when I've heard so many stories about
It being different.
it's different now. Maybe I don't know, but I think there's a lot of good. I think people do a lot of good.
Well, I think they were trying to just make it very matter of fact. I think that they weren't trying to make this such a big deal. It's just how they fixed the problem.
Yeah.
And so they weren't.
It was.
They,
Yeah, I would think, even in the 80s, people that would go into that field, that line of work, that area of,
Right.
right,
Sure.
would be more compassionate, more empathetic, and understand, and they just want
more
to be there.
comforting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More, regardless of time period. And I would probably lean more with Angela's, like, they're trying to,
I don't want to say downplay it, but they're trying to minimize the importance of it.
Exactly.
I think they're just trying to make it like
And
matter
I'm
of
remembering
fact.
the
It's just one
scene
of
in
those
like
things that just
Fast
happen.
Times
Yeah.
at Ridgemont High when they go, and it's real quick,
yeah.
and she's just sitting there waiting for a ride.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Because-
Exactly. It is. It's
because
like
although-
super quick, super informal, but she makes this big
When
deal
it's
of it.
really everything the opposite of
Yeah.
that, as if you're going through
Yeah,
it.
but let's
Exactly.
face it.
for
they're-
movie
they-
purposes.
Well,
you
it's
have to-
I think it's the diametrically opposing forces of, to the young woman, it is this giant
yes.
thing, but the actual procedure being short and clinical
Right.
and this, that, right?
Okay. But I also think since the movie wasn't following her, since it
True.
wasn't her,
That's what I was going to
Again,
say. That's
Well,
what I was going to
again-
say.
It's a
Again,
bad
that's
movie.
that's
Yeah.
why there's a
If-
montage with happy music at
With
that point.
happy,
Exactly.
happy
That's
music.
where the-
Yeah.
It's
okay.
okay. So they go back to the house, right? And they're laying in the same bed, and he's topless, and she just had an abortion, and he does the good guy thing and covers her up, and in the
Brings her
creepiest,
food
in the
and all that.
creepiest way possible, covers her up.
This,
Just
yeah.
slowly pulls the sheet up her like underwear clad form,
Mm-hmm.
And then
and then leaves the room to go
Then
sleep
no.
on the couch.
he sits there and watches her sleep.
Ugh.
Ugh. Is that a
That's
theme?
the best.
Is that a theme for this season?
But then later, when she's packing up, and she asks, she says, "You're such a good friend. I don't know anyone else who would do this for me."
That's
Totally
very
friend
sweet.
zone.
And
Very
he
sweet.
gets
Yeah.
all teary eyed, and he like stares at her, and then Open Arms Again starts playing,
Yeah.
and it's "I've loved you since I first met you," and so then she kisses him,
Mm-hmm.
and you cut to the next day.
Yeah.
What do you think happened?
Oh, you're saying you think that they
I'm asking
got
the
it on?
question. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't think about
Oh,
that.
that night?
Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't even.
She did kiss him.
She kissed him,
I
and then
don't
they started
so.
making out.
I don't
They started.
so.
There wasn't like a peck on the cheek. He just had confessed his love for her.
Um,
He did do.
Just real quick, I don't
I
know
don't-
that they recommend sex right after an abortion
Who-
because this is immediately after
Yes.
she
who
has
are
an
we-
abortion.
Yeah.
We're talking about probably some of the worst people in the world, and I
Are
mean,
writing this movie.
she.
I don't.
And I think with the ending of this movie, I think she starts climbing that ladder of worst
I-
people.
She,
I-
she
no,
knows.
I don't-
That's a
I don't-
big
She-
possibility.
that is so true.
I
She
think
gets
at
right in
that-
the boat with the rest of them.
I think at that moment she might have thought she liked him.
Mhm.
I think at that moment
I think she was grateful to him.
she
I
was
think-
grateful, but you know how you again back to the teenager attitude. Or I'm not trying to pick on teenagers, but just that immaturity
go
level.
ahead.
Save
Pick
that
on
for
them.
Andy.
She
Save that for
bought-
Andy.
She
13-year-old
bought into
girls.
she bought into playing house. She thought for a second, this is like being a wife. He's like my husband.
I don't.
Then
I didn't get that vibe.
Rick swoops back in, and she's like, "Oh, he really
Right.
gets
So,
my
so
he
engine."
goes. He
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
He goes and buys her. Was it a ring?
No, it's
A
locket.
Yeah, trinket.
And
To Karen with
with a K.
I gotta have it. I can't have it on Monday. This is for my girlfriend. It's her birthday.
Yeah,
on
He has to
Saturday.
expedite it.
So
Delusional.
that goes right to your theory that maybe they did.
So I don't
Mess
know.
around.
I don't
I didn't-
know.
I didn't get that
Oh, I
vibe.
didn't get that.
The vibe I got whenever she kissed him, like she's touching his face, and it was almost
Yeah.
like a oh.
Yeah.
I feel so
Mm.
sorry.
I
for
feel so
you.
sorry
let me
for
tell
you.
you.
Here's a pity kiss.
First of all, if I sit there and say, "I love you, I've always loved you," and your next response is a kiss, that is what you call leading someone on. Like, you should just say, "We're just friends." That's when you say that.
I appreciate
you
what
don't
you did
say,
for me.
let's make out. Well, now you're sending cross signals to the serial killer.
Now, he got some cross signals.
And so
Well, just there.
he goes to her
Yeah.
birthday party.
Yep.
And oh man, it was so good. It was so good.
You didn't,
And he's
you
all
didn't-
like,
did you expect it, Doug?
No, I did not. And then he opens the door and they're making out. And then of course, what's the song?
Oh, I didn't write it down.
Oh, here. I did my best.
Yes, it's telling
This
us.
wasn't
good
enough.
And I'm riding in the car with my
And
friends.
she's
I
like,
just got my
and he's-
heart broke.
and you see,
the girl I love is with my best friend.
and you see his face. His face just drops, and he's watching him make out, and she like stops kissing him
And
looks at him.
Oh my God.
And they
It's
both
like-
look at him.
They
I
both,
wanted her to be like.
they
and she
both
ripped
looked at
my
him.
heart
I-
through my anus.
I thought she was gonna be like, I want you to watch.
You goddamn cuck.
And he goes and gets in his car and drives off.
Cries.
So he goes and gets in his car and cries. Credits.
Yes.
I was floored.
Cut the
I was
credits.
like, holy shit, they just did this. And I thought, Gary's probably one of the worst people I've ever seen in movies. Like
Cinema?
worse than Commodus and Gladiator, worse
Oh.
than all these.
Gary?
Oh, Rick.
Yes.
Gary.
Oh, yes.
Gary.
Oh.
Rick was
Terrible.
bad.
Yeah. they're-
But
But
Rick
Rick's
didn't
just
make
bad.
any Rick didn't make
David's
any
the
airs about
best
what he
out of that
was.
threesome.
Rick, like everybody knew what Rick was. Rick knew.
Absolutely. Rick was
a horn
everybody-
dog.
and so
He presented himself as a horn dog.
Here's what bothers me, and this is why the movie's kind of. If he is so bad, she knows what he is at that point, and then she's back with him.
She's
Because girls do that.
he's a bad boy.
Girls are dumb. And
That's
he
what
was her
everybody tells me.
first.
Everybody always defends the film and says, "Well, that's what girls do," and I'm like, "That is just
well,
Because she's
y'all
dumb.
have such a low bar for yourself."
Because the thing is, Gary
young. You have to put the
Gary was
young
never
people's
going to
thing.
get her.
Gary was never going to get her.
agree with
And
that. I
it
agree with that.
Made it so I almost thought like, wow, this is like a real movie. Like this is like real life. Like
Right?
this is how it works, guys. Like
Moral of the story: life is a cruel bitch. Don't try to grow up so fast.
Aw.
I wrote that down.
Aw.
I really think that when she was in that house with him in grandma's house, they were both isolated, and there for a split second they were in an alternate universe where they were married or not. I know they weren't really married.
because
and
he
all
even
that,
tries
but-
to say, well, do you miss anyone? Like, do you miss the gang? He wanted her to say, I miss Rick.
I've watched the
Yeah.
actor who plays David on talk about this film,
Mhm.
and talks about that end scene because that party was supposed to be the end. They're all there partying together. It's like a little montage of all the different partying they're doing together, and the movie ends. And then they showed up to film it, and the director writer switched it up on them.
Oh, it was,
Also, originally meant to be a trilogy of films.
Which the originals went on to make like 5 or 6 of them.
and so did he go on to become like the Green River Killer or something like that? You know,
Who,
where-
David?
Yeah, no.
No,
Gary.
Gary.
I don't know
Gary.
what happened to
He
the actor
either
playing Gary.
he either went on to like murder young
BTK.
women.
It was like
across the
BTK or Ted
Midwest.
Bundy or something like that.
Or immediately after this movie, he went to Lover's Point and like jumped off.
Off himself.
Exactly, totally like just offed himself.
I
He's
think
done.
part of the reason I also hate the film is the actor who plays Gary is just so fucking
Absolutely.
Oh,
annoying
he's
by the time I
terrible.
get to
So
the end. I
annoying.
just want to slap that
So,
kid around. He's
yeah.
so annoying.
Horrid. All of them.
So my alternate theory of this movie is what world this really is. I realize that those 3 are probably some of the 3 worst people I've ever watched. And I thought, where have I seen the 3 worst people I've ever watched? And then I realized Gary, Rick, and David are very much like Charlie, Mac, and Dennis from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I think it's an origin story of them in high school. And this is why you get Dennis, who always banged the waitress, who was Karen, and Charlie is in love with the waitress but never gets her. And Mac is always just a guy who hangs around and takes the seconds from Dennis.
Yeah.
It's always Sunny in
It's a good-
Philadelphia.
it's a
Oh, and
theory.
he's
That's
supposed,
good.
and also the big what's the big guy's
David.
David kind of gave off some maybe he's gay vibes because he was really into the penis measuring. He was
Theater
really
being.
into it. He was really happy about
and
it.
getting seconds. He enjoyed going second.
So maybe if it feeds into your Always Sunny.
So
He
I
liked-
think
he liked dipping into Grandpappy's shaving
I
bar.
think it's.
I'm surprised you liked it so much. Though, Doug. It's just-
I was too. I walked out. I was like, I cannot believe Andy doesn't like this movie. But then I realized I liked it, so therefore Andy probably hated it.
but you knew. I think everyone here knew that the main reason I hate it is because of that.
I had
head.
to be. No,
That
the
end
moment
is
I
so-
saw
we-
the
Yeah.
the
we
end
know
is
you
so
well enough.
freaking shocking. The first time
Well,
you see
that's
it.
the ending that what's his name? John Hughes wanted to Pretty in Pink, right? Where
with Ducky.
there you go. And that
she
fi-
should have been with Ducky.
right.
She should have been with Ducky.
Who then he finally got a few movies later with Eric Stoltz and
Oh, some
Mask.
kind of
Some Kind of Wonderful.
in January, Louisa Moritz, the actress played Carmela, died
Oh,
just this year. But one of the big things about her is that she was one of the plaintiffs against Bill Cosby.
Oh, really?
She
Oh,
accused
wow.
him
Interesting.
of sexual assault, and what she accused him of was that during a taping of Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, that Bill Cosby forced her to give him oral sex in the green room, in the dressing room, in 1971. So she was one of the. When you think of those empty chairs on that Time cover or whatever, cover. That
Yeah,
was one of
sure.
them.
I
One of them was Carmela.
I saw some video of her talking about making this movie and how much fun she had and how much fun they did.
Well, it was like
Well,
one
she looked like
scene.
she was having fun. I will give her that. She looked like she was
She
having a
acted
lot
it
of
up.
fun.
So around
So-
the board, Doug liked it. Kevin.
No, I didn't. It was forgettable for me.
Didn't
Well, we know Andy. Hates
I didn't hate it. It was forgettable.
Jess.
I didn't hate it. I
So you're on a date.
for what
And
it
you got a phone
no,
call.
No, don't.
Andrew
We're not
calls
going there.
you
I can never
and
remember
says-
which scenario I'm actually
Or
doing.
last American version.
Oh, never.
I didn't. It's not. I don't think it's a good movie. I have a lot of problems with it, scene by scene. But as a whole, don't try to grow up so fast.
Yeah.
Hold on to 16 as long as you can.
And for a lot of me,
Exactly.
it was nostalgia of the 80s.
Yeah,
the
a little
80s
bit.
movies.
Yeah, and the music,
What'd
the
you
music
call
was
it?
amazing.
The sex farces.
Sex
of it,
farce.
yeah.
Yeah, I you don't see those anymore, and so you do kind of with.
You can't
I
make
don't
those
think you'll see
anymore.
them
Can't make
because
this
you
shit
have
up.
such easy access to porn.
You see
it's
them
hard
like,
to-
but I mean, like American Pie. It was
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah.
Road Trip.
Yeah.
You know,
Trip.
those
Yeah,
are
big
all
time.
the very similar type movies. But it just reminded me of that, and I enjoyed it. And I didn't have Ridgemont High to compare it to.
Oh, you've never
Yeah.
seen Fast
I've never
Times?
known.
Oh, wow.
Because I was 5 or so when that came out, so it was past me by the time, and
Yeah.
so by the time I was like old enough, Ridgemont High wasn't something that
Yeah.
played a whole lot.
Yeah.
You were in the 90s with the American Pie, where you're high school.
So
Would you recommend it, Angie? No.
I think we cut. I mean, we all
I
we
think if
talked about
if
it.
you like those other like Porky's and stuff, sure, watch it.
So 1 out of 4.
So if we're going to rank this with the other must-watches,
That was going to be my question. So now, what do we think would be
Oh.
the number one movie that we
Now-
as a collective Dirty Penguin hate?
are we saying the worst, the
I
most
say the
hated
worst
is number
of
one,
the
or
mer-
the best movie is number one? Like, what are we?
I'd say.
Most
I don't
hated
know.
is number
the most
one.
We should have
hated
probably
would be
talked
number
about
one.
Well, I'll put it like this: we can almost do it by what was our recommends. You know, Geely was 0 out of 5. No one would recommend that movie.
That's true.
That's the worst.
I
That
would've
is
put
the
that
most
high-
hated.
that is my most hated movie anyway.
It was
I
0
would-
out of 5. I know you hate Ever After.
I would watch Geely before I watched Ever After.
Really?
No,
I don't understand.
no.
Really?
I don't even.
He hated it. He hated it. Let's
I
get
don't-
it. Let's get it to everyone's
but-
head right
but-
now.
That wasn't even
collectively-
your movie, and you
I
just
know.
All right,
So it
all
would-
right, so like show of hands. I know our listeners can't see show of hands. Show of hands for Geely as the worst movie that we chose.
hands
I mean,
down,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, looks like y'all are going
And-
Geely.
And I
I'm the
didn't.
odd man out.
And I didn't think so the first time I saw it. The first time I saw it, I thought it was just forgettable and just a hot mess of a film. And then I saw it again, and my hate just intensified for that movie.
Well, like I explained watching Ever After as feeling like of being waterboarded. Geely, I
fingernails
I
and-
would have waterboarded myself to end it.
It is so bad. Everything
Yes.
about it is bad. There is not a redeeming thing about that movie.
I found
Except for maybe
J-Lo
Al
attractive.
Pacino. There's only so much J-Lo can carry.
Just like Showgirls, there's only so
Watch-
much
If you
TNA
want-
you can watch.
If you want a better
So much
J-Lo
TNA.
movie that has better J-Lo, watch The Boy Next Door. She gets finger banged like a madman on that one.
Hey, you don't see anything.
I know, but it's still, I mean,
Well,
better,
just saying,
you get better.
Finger bang.
And so the best one is what, Twilight?
Oh,
Uh,
by far.
but yeah,
I would go Vanilla Sky.
of course you would.
I would say probably Vanilla Sky too. I would say yeah.
So three
same here.
3 out of 5 say Twilight.
Okay.
What, talking to me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so then what are you?
I assume that y'all like Twilight more. I hated Twilight. I mean,
Oh.
Twilight was
Twilight was his most
my
hated movie.
choice. It
I
will
know.
never
I
be
know that.
Okay, so what's your best of the worst?
Probably Ever After.
Best of the worst is
my
Ever After.
God. He likes Ever.
Ever
If
After.
I have to say this one more time.
Vanilla Sky.
You guys just won't
He
accept
likes
that
Ever
he likes
After. He
Ever
likes this movie.
Yeah, it's for me. It's Ever After, Vanilla Sky, Twilight. No,
That's the
I'm
movie.
sorry. For me, it's The Last American Virgin. I like
It's
that
the
one the
best.
best.
Yeah.
I like that
Yeah,
one the
I know. I was
best.
gonna
Really?
say.
Yeah,
Wow.
then it's that The Last American Virgin.
Ever After.
Ever After.
Interesting.
Vanilla
Not
Sky.
Vanilla
Twilight.
Sky, Twilight, Geely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That wraps
Well,
up.
that you hear it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
The Dirty Penguin gives you the worst movie.
No, the most,
No,
the
the
most
most
hated
not
movie.
Yes,
Most
that's right.
hated.
The most hated movie of the Dirty Penguin right now, the collective Dirty Penguin, is Geely. So congratulations, Ben Affleck. Congratulations, Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer.
You may come collect your tacos and burritos at any point.
That's the 17th South Park reference I think we've made.
Taco, burrito, burrito.
Taco Kisses.
You can come pick up your tacos and burritos. We will bronze them for you at any time. Please just come see us right at the house. Roll up with your entourage. We're cool with that.
Or A-Rod. I wouldn't mind meeting A-Rod.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All
With their
right.
$20 million ring.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. So that does it. Season
All right.
2. We wrapped season
Season
2.
two.
That's 6 episodes in the can. Dirty Penguin. Well done, you guys. Round of
Oh,
applause
thank
for you
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, you all.
Jesse, Andy, Doug, Angie.
And
well done.
season 3 is
Well, that's what we're talking about. Season 3, we are going to be talking about movies we love. That's right.
Oh.
Movies we love. We did season 2, movies we hate, and this was a polarizing season. We had Penguin against Penguin. Blood was drawn. I don't know if you guys know this, but tonight is the anniversary of the first Dirty Penguin. Did you know that?
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
what do you mean?
It's Friday night. The first time we all met as the Dirty Penguin was a
Wow.
Friday night.
We don't know what.
It might not
When?
have been this exact Friday night,
I just know it's a Friday night.
but it was some Friday night.
I thought
you were
it was
like it was
today. I
past.
was like, damn, you wrote this down.
Wow, man. I was going to say, like, Kevin,
How did
what,
you
what
know
was
that?
the first time you held hands? You'd be like, oh, that was June 29th. Like, you must
Well,
keep
this
these
is how
dates.
our anniversaries are. He's like, we got married one day at some point during the course of our history.
You know
And
what time it is?
And
It's 6 p.m. This is the anniversary of the time that we got married.
it was.
But we got married.
Anniversary has a very specific meaning.
Yeah, normally.
Well, that's what the
So-
normal people do, not us.
Exactly. Yes. So season 3 is coming up. We're going to be doing movies we love. We wanted to give you a little bit more about each of the penguins,
Our personal tastes.
our personal
Yeah.
tastes. So you can go back to season 2, listen to the movies we hate. You can come to season 3, movies we love, and really get a feel of what the Dirty Penguin and what each of us really bring to your life as a member of the Penguin Army. Follow us out there on all the things. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Dirty Penguin Presents. You can follow us on Twitter at Dirty Presents. Follow us on all the things. We update regularly on our website, thedirtypenguinpresents.com. Gang?
Right. Yeah.
Any final words?
Just go on Twitter or go on Facebook. Leave us some comments. Drop your thoughts.
Leave some
Let us
comments.
know what,
Tell everybody
we're
how
doing.
right I am. So.
And if whatever platform you're listening on, go rate and review. Rate
Yeah,
and
Five
rate
stars.
review.
If you're not going to
Stars.
leave 5 stars, don't leave anything.
Absolutely. 5 stars. That's it. Season 2 in the can.
right.
Dirty Penguin. We out.